I want to tell you something tonight, something I've been carrying with me for a long time, something that weighs on me in the quiet hours when the world goes still and there's nothing left but the sound of my own breathing and the thoughts I can't outrun. You know, people see me on screens, in photographs, at events where the lights are bright and the cameras click like hungry insects. They see someone they think has it all figured out, someone who's made it, someone who doesn't lie awake at 3 a.m. wondering if any of it matters. But I want to be honest with you. I want to sit here, just you and me, and tell you about something that happened to me a few years ago. A moment that broke me open in a way I didn't expect, but that also taught me something I carry with me every single day. It was autumn. I remember that specifically because the leaves were doing that thing they do when they're dying, when they turn all these impossible colors before they let go and fall, beautiful and sad at the same time. I was in between projects, in between everything, really. The kind of in-between that feels less like a pause and more like being suspended in empty space, untethered, floating with nothing to hold on to. I'd been working non-stop for years, film after film, interview after interview, always moving, always doing, always being whatever version of myself people needed me to be in that moment. And then suddenly, there was nothing. The phone wasn't ringing the way it used to. The scripts that came in felt hollow, like someone had written them without putting any soul into the words. And I found myself sitting in my house, in rooms that felt too big and too empty, wondering what the hell I was doing with my life. I know what you're thinking. Poor movie star, right? Poor guy who's made films people love, who has money in the bank, who doesn't have to worry about where his next meal is coming from. And you're not wrong to think that. I'm not here to ask for your sympathy. I'm just trying to tell you the truth about what it feels like when you realize that the thing you've built your entire identity around, the thing that's given your life meaning and purpose, might not be there anymore. Or worse, might still be there, but doesn't fill you up the way it used to. There was this day. I remember it so clearly it's like it's tattooed on the inside of my eyelids. It was a Tuesday, which feels important somehow, though I don't know why. Tuesdays have that quality of being forgotten, don't they? Monday gets all the attention because everyone hates it. Wednesday is the middle, the hump, but Tuesday just kind of slides by unnoticed. I woke up that morning and I didn't want to get out of bed. Not in a dramatic way, not like I couldn't physically move. Just this heavy feeling of, what's the point? That question that sits on your chest like a stone. What's the point of getting up? What's the point of showering, of eating, of going through the motions of being alive when nobody needs you, when nobody's waiting for you, when you could disappear and the world would just keep spinning, wouldn't even notice the empty space where you used to be? I lay there for a long time, watching the sunlight move across the ceiling, these patterns of light and shadow shifting so slowly you could barely see it happening. And I thought about all the people who used to call, agents, managers, directors, friends who needed something, wanted something, had a place for me in their plans, and how quiet my phone had become. How the silence had filled up my life like water rising, slow and cold and inevitable. I thought about my father. He's been gone a long time now. But that morning I could almost hear his voice, the way he used to talk about work, about purpose, about what makes a man's life worth living. He had his own struggles, his own demons he wrestled with in the dark, and I wondered if he ever felt this way, if he ever woke up and thought, nobody needs me anymore, nobody's waiting, nobody cares if I show up or not. Eventually I did get up, forced myself to move through the routine of being human. Coffee, shower, getting dressed even though I had nowhere to go, and I decided to take a walk. That's what I do when my mind gets too loud, too crowded with thoughts that circle like vultures. I walk. There's this trail near where I live. Nothing special, really. Just dirt paths winding through trees and scrub brush, the kind of landscape that's been baked dry by the California sun. I started walking without any destination, just putting one foot in front of the other, letting my body move while my mind kept churning through all these dark thoughts. I must have walked for an hour, maybe more. Time does this strange thing when you're alone with yourself, when there's no one to perform for, no one to be anything for. It stretches and compresses, becomes almost meaningless. And then I saw him. There was this old man sitting on a bench at one of the viewpoints, just sitting there, looking out over the valley. He had white hair that moved in the breeze, and he was wearing clothes that had seen better days, worn and faded but clean. Something about the way he was sitting, very still, very present, made me slow down. I don't usually approach strangers. I've learned to keep my distance, to protect this small space of anonymity when I can find it. But something about this man, something about that moment, pulled me toward him. "Beautiful view," I said, which felt stupid the second the words left my mouth, like the most obvious thing anyone could say. He turned to look at me, and his eyes were this pale blue, like water with sunlight behind it. He smiled, and it was the kind of smile that had some sadness in it, some weight of years lived. "It is," he said. "I come here every day, have been for 3 years now." I sat down on the other end of the bench, keeping a respectful distance. We sat in silence for a while, both looking out at the valley, at the hazy sprawl of the city in the distance, at the way the light hit the hills and made everything look softer than it really was. "Can I tell you something?" he said after a while. I nodded. 3 years ago, my wife passed away. We'd been married for 52 years, more than half my life. And when she was gone, I thought I was done too. Thought the part of me that mattered died with her. He paused, and I could see his hands gripping the edge of the bench, knuckles white. We never had children. It was just us. Always just us. And I thought, who am I now? Who needs me now? What's the point of sticking around when the only person who ever really needed me is gone? My throat got tight. I didn't say anything. Sometimes the best thing you can do is just be quiet and let someone tell their story. "I spent 6 months barely leaving the house," he continued. "I'd wake up and the day would feel like this impossible mountain I had to climb. And for what? To get to nighttime so I could sleep and wake up and do it all again? It felt cruel. It felt pointless." He turned to look at me then. Really look at me. "You know what saved me?" I shook my head. "This bench. This stupid bench in the middle of nowhere." He laughed a little, but it wasn't a happy sound. "One day I forced myself to leave the house, just to prove I could still do it. And I walked until I found this spot. Sat down. And this kid, couldn't have been more than 7 or 8, came running up this trail with his mom trailing behind him. And he stopped right in front of me, breathing hard, eyes all lit up, and he said, 'Did you see it? Did you see the hawk?' And I hadn't seen any hawk, but the way this kid was so excited, so full of life, it was like someone turned a light on in a dark room. The old man's eyes got wet, but he kept talking. His mom caught up, apologized for him bothering me. But he wasn't bothering me. He was reminding me that the world is still full of wonder, that there are still hawks flying overhead, even if I wasn't looking up, that there are still kids who run up trails with their hearts full of joy. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. So I started coming here every day. And every day, someone new shows up. A woman training for a marathon runs past and waves. A couple having their first date, nervous and sweet. Teenagers cutting school, sitting on the rocks and talking about their dreams. And I sit here and I watch them, and I realize I don't have to be the center of someone's world to matter. I don't have to be needed in some big dramatic way. I just have to be here, present, bearing witness to all these beautiful ordinary moments. He looked back out at the view. "That's what I figured out. We think we have to be essential, have to be irreplaceable, have to be the hero of the story. But maybe that's not it at all. Maybe we just have to show up. Maybe our job is just to be here, to be kind when kindness is needed, to notice when someone needs noticing, to make the world a little softer by being in it." I sat there with his words settling into me like sediment, like something solid forming out of all the chaos in my head. We talked for a while longer, about nothing and everything. He told me about his wife, about their life together, about the small rituals they'd built over decades, making coffee in the morning, reading the paper together, walking their dog, all these tiny, ordinary things that added up to a life, to a love, to something that mattered even if the whole world never knew about it. When I finally stood up to leave, he shook my hand and said, "Don't wait until everything's perfect to believe you matter. Don't wait until someone tells you you're needed. Just show up. Just be here. That's enough. That's always enough." I walked back down that trail with something shifted inside me. Like a bone that had been out of place for so long I'd forgotten what it felt like to stand up straight, and then suddenly it clicked back into alignment. I thought about all the years I'd spent measuring my worth by how many people wanted me, how busy I was, how much noise there was around me, and how terrifying the quiet had been, how I'd interpreted silence as abandonment, as proof that I'd become obsolete, unnecessary, forgotten. But here's what I learned that day, what that old man on the bench taught me without even meaning to. Our value doesn't come from being needed. It comes from being here, from showing up to this life even when it's hard, even when it hurts, even when nobody's calling our name or waiting at the door or depending on us to save them. I started looking at my life differently after that. Started noticing things I'd been too busy or too self-absorbed to see before. The barista who makes my coffee in the morning and always remembers to add just a little extra foam the way I like it, even though I've never told her I appreciate it. The mail carrier who climbs my front steps in the blazing sun and the pouring rain, day after day, making sure I get these pieces of paper that connect me to the wider world. The woman at the grocery store who bags my items carefully, asking if I want the bread on top so it doesn't get crushed. All these people showing up to their lives, doing their jobs, being kind in small ways that nobody's making movies about, that won't make headlines or win awards. But their presence matters. Their showing up matters. They're making the world work, making it livable, making it a little less harsh and a little more human. And I started asking myself, how can I do that? How can I show up in a way that makes things a little better, a little softer, a little more bearable for whoever crosses my path? I started small, started actually seeing the people around me instead of moving through my days like a ghost. Started saying thank you and meaning it. Started asking how are you and actually waiting for the answer. Started offering help when I could. Not because it would make me look good or get me something in return, but because it needed doing and I was there and I had hands that could do it. And you know what I discovered? The less I worried about being needed, the more I found ways to be useful. The less I obsessed over whether I mattered, the more I was able to matter in real, tangible ways. There was this day, maybe 6 months after meeting that old man, when I was at a coffee shop working on a script, just sitting there with my laptop, trying to make sense of some dialogue that wasn't working. And this kid, maybe 19 or 20, was at the next table, and I could hear him on the phone with someone, and he was crying. Not loud, not making a scene, just these quiet tears running down his face while he tried to hold it together. He hung up eventually, just sat there staring at nothing, and I felt this pull to say something, to do something. The old me would have looked away, would have told myself it's none of my business. People don't want strangers interfering in their private moments. But I thought about that bench, about that old man, about showing up. So I walked over and I said, "Hey, I don't mean to intrude, but I just wanted to make sure you're okay. Do you need anything?" He looked up at me, and I could see him trying to place me, figure out if he knew me, and then he just shook his head and said, "I'm sorry, I'm fine. I'm just having a really bad day." "Yeah," I said, "I know those. Mind if I sit for a second?" He shrugged, so I sat down. "You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to," I told him, "but I'm here if you need to." And something in him broke open. He started talking, all these words tumbling out like they'd been dammed up, and finally the wall gave way. He just found out his father was sick, really sick, and he didn't have money to fly home. And he felt so far away, so helpless, so scared of losing the time he had left. I listened. That's all I did, really. I just sat there and listened while this kid poured out his heart to a stranger in a coffee shop. And when he was done, when he'd said everything he needed to say, he looked at me and said, "Thank you. I'm sorry for dumping all that on you. I just needed someone to hear it." "Don't apologize," I said. "Sometimes we just need to be heard. Sometimes that's the most important thing." I ended up helping him figure out how to get home. Made some calls, pulled some strings, got him on a flight that night, and the look on his face, the gratitude and relief and hope that maybe he'd make it in time. Maybe he'd get to say the things he needed to say to his father. That look was worth more than any paycheck I've ever received, any award I've ever been nominated for. That kid didn't need me specifically. He needed someone, anyone, to see him in that moment, to acknowledge his pain, to offer a hand. And I just happened to be there. I just happened to show up. But that's the thing, isn't it? We just happen to be here. We just happen to show up to our lives every day. And we can choose to move through the world like we're invisible, like nothing we do matters, like our presence is just taking up space. Or we can choose to be present, to be awake, to notice when someone needs noticing, to offer kindness when it costs us nothing but a moment of our time. I think a lot about that old man on the bench. I wonder if he knows what he did for me that day, how his words pulled me back from a place I was dangerously close to falling into, a place where nothing had meaning, where nothing was worth the effort, where it all felt like too much work for too little reward. He probably doesn't know. Probably thinks it was just another conversation with a stranger, just another day on his bench watching the world go by. But that's the beautiful, terrible thing about being human. We don't always get to see the ripples we create. We throw stones into the water and walk away before we can see how far the circles spread. I've learned to make peace with that.